Susan Rushton again, and this is Olio. And before I go any further, I need to explain what Olio means. You may know, you may not. It's short for olla podrida, which is Spanish for rotten bowl. It's a Spanish Portuguese dish with pork and all kinds of pork, bacon, sausage, ears, etc., as well as chicken, chickpeas, cabbage, carrots, beans, as well as, of course, onions and garlic. In other words, olio is all sorts of things. And I certainly have a wonderful kind of guy here today. This is Dean Prigmore. Dean Prigmore. Yes, Dean Prigmore. I'm really thrilled. Dean, and if you are interested in learning more about him, you can email him at deanandpatrice, Patrice, at iCloud.com. And he may or may not respond, but he's a good talker, and we will learn about that now. And he would be delighted to talk with you, or to email you. I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Now you are not, quote, working anymore.
True. In the normal sense of getting a salary or something.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
just
true.
like I'm not working anymore.
Right.
But oh my goodness.
You should see my calendar.
Yeah, mine too. But what did you used to be doing from 1973 to 206?
Well, before 1973, it might be interesting.
Okay.
I was actually the troop commander at the Sacramento Army Depot during the Vietnam War.
Say that again.
Yeah, I was the troop commander at the Sacramento Army Depot. I was a Signal Corps officer, communications officer.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I was a captain. I got out of the Army as a captain. I had a group of 350 odd technical experts who could repair any kind of communications equipment that was available at the time. We used to have, the way we used to talk to Vietnam is that we used to have these giant antennae that were partial parabolas, in other words, like this, that
gigantic.
They communicated over the horizon and some of them bounced off the ionosphere down into Vietnam, and that was the way. There were no satellites then. That was the way we communicated with Vietnam. My guys were...
This is how old he is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. In any event, it has to do with why I'm here now. Because my company clerk was a fellow named John Krogsrud, who was born in Auburn, and who had been drafted in the Army and was serving as my company clerk. I came from Colorado. I grew up in Colorado. Mm-hmm. My father was an outdoorsman and an entrepreneur, and we went a lot of hiking and fishing and camping.
I can imagine.
An ideal for young boys, my brother and myself, to have a father who said, "Let's go hiking, let's go fishing, let's go camping this weekend." And as a consequence, I was a backpacker. Loved to go backpacking and the like. And when I got to California, I found that I could backpack in the Sierras for many more months of the year than I could in Colorado. Colorado was a couple of months a year, and that's it. In California, we could backpack, 6, 8, 9 months a year, depending on where you wanted to go. My friend, and now a best friend since that time for 55 years, is John Krogsrud. He said, "Well, let me show next weekend. Let me show, because we had weekends off at that particular point. Let me show you the Sierras. Let me show you some places to go." And so we backpacked a few times, and then a lot of times, and then with other people and all that sort of thing. All the times that I was in the service, and then he got out when his time was up. A few months later, they came down with a early release program, 6 weeks early for people who had been in all that time, because they had too many company level officers, captains, maybe.
Darn.
Yeah, well, I mean, the war was...
How exciting.
The war was winding down rapidly, concluding by 1975. And so he said, "Well, Oh, and then on top of it all, I had wanted to be a lawyer my whole life. I mean, I'd wanted to be a lawyer since I was a teenager. And I was all set up. I'd actually been accepted at Harvard. I'd been accepted at Bolt Hall. I'd been accepted at Denver for schools. When I graduated my Phi Beta Kappa magna cum laude from Colorado State University.
What a surprise!
And,
No,
and,
not a surprise at all.
and 10 days later, I was drafted, and ended up in the Army, and so that was it. So I spent my time and did as best I could, which was what my father suggested. He was a World War II veteran. In any event, and so I had passed the law school entrance exam and all that stuff. I was all ready to go to law school if I wasn't drafted.
Yeah,
well,
but you were drafted, and then.
So I got out of the Army here now, 3 years, 10 months, 22 days, 4 hours, and 6 minutes later. I've always managed to figure that out, even how long I was in service. And I went to reapply to see if I could still attend any one of these. I couldn't have afforded Harvard, so it was out of the question anyway. And I would have been out of state for Bolt Hall because I was in Colorado resident. So I thought it was going to be the University of Denver at Colorado, University of Colorado at Denver, excuse me, was where I was headed for the law school there. And they had, an educational testing service had lost my entrance exam scores.
Oh, Lord.
Lost them. That was the days when we did them on paper.
Uh-huh.
Apparently they'd had a fire. In any event, so I went back to my my college advisor, and I said, do you by any chance have a copy of that? Because my mother had moved while I was in the Army, and a lot of my
she doesn't know where that is. Okay.
Well, a lot of stuff actually got tossed out.
What did they say? What did he say?
He said, I cleaned up my files last week. You'll have to, so in contacting the law school, he said you'll have to wait. In those days, it was a year by year. There was no interim classes. If you entered in 1 year or you entered in the next year. And they said you can reapply next year. You can go take the exam again and that sort of thing. So that meant I had a year to earn a living. Right? I'm getting out of the Army now. I've got to do something to feed myself. So my friend John said, well, there is a position up in Placer County in Auburn that might fit you because you did I did some research work with graduate students while I was at Colorado State regarding the environment and the economics of environment and that sort of stuff. I was really thinking about being an environmental attorney. So he said, I think the planning department up there might be a fit for you for a year. So I went up, took the exam. I went home for 30 days, spent time with my mother. She cried when I left, said, why don't you stay in Colorado? I said, because I think I have a job in California. Yeah. But she didn't know. She also didn't really know that I'd more or less fallen in love with Northern California by that point.
Okay. And somebody else?
Not yet.
Okay.
I was still loose and fancy free pretty much in those days. But I came back out, and John and a friend of his had a small farm down in Loomis, and I got to sleep on a waterbed mattress in the front room.
And so, what did you finally get to?
I finally got to. So I got the job.
And which job is that?
It was called an assistant planner.
Okay.
I was the guy who worked the desk. I was the guy who answered questions at the desk.
About what?
About zoning and building permits and all those kinds of things that people have when land development, land sales, all those kinds of things that the county has, as people might not know, a plan for how the county's going to grow in population. When I came to work for Placer County, there were 77,000 people in the entire county, and now we have nearly 500,000.
Yeah.
My 33 years in the planning department, where I rose to the assistant planning director rank, I guess you'd say, and I was also the zoning administrator, which is an administrative law judge that knows the zoning ordinance well enough, and then holds hearings about people who need to move their proposed building a little closer to the property line than the setbacks allow. Mm-hmm. There are reasons why that could be a good idea. And so the county has a hearing process for those kinds of things. Also special uses that occur that are particularly loud, particularly noisy, particularly whatever, have special regulations that keep them in places. Like, for example, you wouldn't want a county dump next to a school. You wouldn't want a pig farm next to a hospital.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So,
did you enjoy this?
I loved it. I loved it so much that at the end of that year, when it was time for me to take the law school entrance exam again, and to go back to law school, I was really having way too much fun. I mean, I was backpacking every weekend into the Sierras. I was living close to or in Auburn. You know, I had friends here that by that time that
especially he was in Auburn.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, and Auburn is an attractive place. Auburn, you know, as a planner, I can tell you that nearly everyone in America would love to live in a small town. They say so in these surveys that we had done. The thing about it is, they all have a different idea of what a small town is. So I went to a planning convention in Sacramento.
Define small.
Yes,
yeah,
and that's what they. So I went to a planning group down in Sacramento, a Saturday seminar, and they asked, who all lives out here in a small town? And about 80% of the hands went up. And they said, okay, who lives in a town of less than 50,000? And most of the hands did not go back up. People in places like Roseville, Rockland, all those places, they considered themselves a small town.
Yeah.
And they finally got down to who lives in a town of less than 2,000? And a few of us from Auburn raised our hands, and that sort of thing. And they said, okay, it goes to show you that that small town is a concept. It's really not necessarily a physical thing, although in truth it is. But we did a number of surveys in my profession, the planning profession throughout. I was also a registered, as a certified planner, much like the AIP is for architects. I was a member of that organization as well. And we did national surveys and things. And people felt like if they could drive 10 minutes in any direction and see a cow or a horse, that's rural.
Yes, me.
That's rural. Yeah. I mean, most people, and people had this sort of idyllic or romantic notion that small towns don't have any of the problems of big cities. That you know, everything is fine. It's like, you know, it's bucolic.
Well,
Well, and in those days, it probably was more so.
Okay.
Truthfully,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when I moved to Auburn, there was one flashing light at the city square that went off at 6 o'clock, and you could fire a cannon down the street and not hit anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it just.
It is different.
It is different, but it has much of its original characteristics too, and that kind of thing is what zoning would do. For example, you know, historic recognition of old buildings, keeping them so that people have the atmosphere of the history, that sort of thing. All kinds of things the county would pursue to preserve the reason that most people move here, as opposed to just wanting to grow.
Okay.
And in those decades that I worked there, we were much of the time, Placer County was in the top 5% of growing counties in the country. A few times we were the fastest growing county in California.
Wow.
A number of those years.
I did that.
And,
I was part of that.
Yes, and you know, good news is many of the people who came here, like me, fell in love with the community and became rapidly absorbed in the community because you are.
Yes.
You really like being here.
Yes.
You like what it is here.
Yes.
And
it's a wonderful place.
It is. And I think one of the questions you tossed out at me is, you know, why are you here? Why do you live in Auburn? Or what do you think about Auburn? And I think it's probably the greatest small town in America, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, nice. And there were two things, one of many things that you're deeply involved in.
That's true.
One of them is The theater,
Yes, the State Theater.
the State Theater.
Yes.
Tell us what that is
So
involved
so
as far as you're concerned.
for a number of years, I was president of the Community Concert Association, which was an ad hoc organization that brought music to small town America. I ended up becoming president of that organization for about 8 years. We owned a piano, which we have donated to the high school. High school now has our piano. We had a concert grand piano, and we had the high school auditorium to fill 5 or 6 times a year, and we would get talent from all over the country.
I remember.
By virtue of something called block booking, and by that I mean there were people in Nashville who would have a certain type of an entertainer, guitarist, whatever it might be, and they would block book. They would block them for they take a block of area of a community or a town or a state, and they would say we can have like 4 or 5 or 6 performances but only fly them out there and back once. That way, and maybe even only have to put them up for a few different nights. That they could do like one in the afternoon in Sacramento and one in the evening here, that kind of thing. And we took advantage of that so that the cost was kept down. Many of those same people were interested in classical music. Matter of fact, many of them were older people at that time, older than me anyway, and so it was kind of a new thing for me to get into that stuff, but I really enjoyed it. And we brought a number of classical artists, and then I started leaning them into spreading their horizon a little bit. So I brought Chascanaqui from Peru. I brought, by being president, my job was to go to Nashville once a year and to audition or listen to the auditions of all these different.
Darn. Shoot!
Yeah, I know.
What a drag!
It was. I'd never been to Nashville either. That was wonderful.
My.
So in the evenings when we're done with our stuff, I would walk 16th Street. Just walk along. And in those days it was true, and I think it still is. You can walk 16th Street and just step into any little bar, any little cafe, and there is some future country singer there, and it's just amazing how many people have. I got to see. I don't remember the names well enough to know if any of them became super famous, but it was just an experience.
Yeah, but that group got older and older and older, and there needed to be more a broader range of entertainment. So I got a call from Esther Stanton. Esther Stanton was 100 years old and a maven of music, classical music and entertainment, and she was everything Auburn in those days. That was about 1970. I'm sorry, about in the 1970s, late 70s, early 80s, and you just didn't say no to Esther. She called me and she says, "You're going to be on the board of directors of the State Theater, of the Auburn Theater." It was just called the Auburn Theater. They're maybe just. You're going to do this.
Yeah, you're going to do this,
aren't you?
And I said, "Well, I'm kind of busy as the president of this other organization," and I had started working with Monroe DeJarnette about the idea of a symphony at that time, and people like Doris Vieira and many other people who were instrumental in founding the symphony. So I worked at doing that as well, and ended up with this new organization that had so over a period of a few years we gathered up, we coalesced, we got money, we did some planning, we bought the State Theater. The way we bought the State Theater was we asked for donors to give us $25,000 as a loan. And we got 20 or 30 of those people in our town.
How nice!
Yeah, it was a hard effort, but it was an easy effort because it was an easy sell. It was an easy. People obviously wanted the theater. We did an economic study that said that if we get this back into operation, the city of Auburn, which then only had 2 restaurants open on the weekends, would be would prosper.
Oh my God!
Isn't that something? And that wasn't my forte. I wasn't really an economist, but it was clear that the studies we were doing we're showing that it would be a net benefit for the community.
Yeah.
So working on community concerts, the new symphony, and the state theater all this time over these first 3 or 4 years, and then finally we purchased. We did all of our due diligence. We bought the building. We began to, and then a year or so later, we began. It was split in half in those days. I don't know if you remember, but there was a wall down the middle. I actually remember it before that wall was built.
Me too.
I went and
Yes.
a few times before that happened, but we bought it and we converted just half of it with volunteer labor. Every weekend go over here, drive some nails. All of us. Some of us who were decent at it, some who weren't, and we got a little temporary stage and we opened for business. And we just were all overwhelmed instantaneously with we sold out nearly every performance at first. It was amazing.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea that you were this involved.
And so it just and then I've been on the board for 20 years as of last year, and and the community concerts phased out.
Yeah.
They finally phased out. I say grayed out is kind of what happened. Too many older people, and most of them got to where they couldn't come to concerts at night.
Yeah.
So, and then the symphony began to take off, which was great. And I was
Symphony, Auburn Symphony.
I was on the board. Yeah, I was on the board there for a year. One of the members of the board said, "You got to come and help us," so I did. And then I got involved, sort of as a side thing, with the Auburn Arts Council. And I was part of a communal committee.
He's got several hats.
Yeah. I need him, I guess.
Just like me.
So and we talked about how the arts community should be cooperating better, performing arts, fine arts, the whole lot. And then in my job, my everyday job, because I was still working with the county during part of this time, right? So. After I actually retired from the county as the assistant director of planning, I continued to go back and basically for a salary sit as a zoning administrator because I had done it for so many years. I sat for another 3 or 4 years as a zoning administrator after I had retired, which just I had that experience and trained. I trained some new people and all that kind of thing. In any event, so I had met Janet and Rick Nicholson. When they came to town, they wanted to start a studio out at their place and then have these events like we all go to now. But the zoning ordinance didn't permit that kind of thing because it was a commercial activity. So we worked together with Fred Yeager, who was the planning director at that time, and I worked together with a number of art groups and that sort of thing, to actually change the zoning ordinance of the county to permit a broader range of artistic endeavor and with a little more liberal and less restrictive methodology.
Oh, nice.
Got it approved, everybody said that was great. About that same time, the American Arts Council did a study that proved, essentially, that for every dollar invested in the arts in a community, they give back $4 into the economy.
Yeah, because people come, people eat, people buy. Yeah,
absolutely.
People get gas.
Absolutely, all of that.
Yeah.
And so the Board of Supervisors said, "You know what? This is a net win."
Yes.
And so I've been and then as another sideline.
Another one.
Leslie Warren decided that she was going to create a native, or no, not a native plant, although she's president of that now, a conservation organization, an environmental organization for kids. Okay, turned out to be what is now the Placer Land Trust. Okay. And the Placer, what they call the school part of it now. They've ended up dividing up. But anyway, in any case, so she asked Patrice and myself to come, and Patrice actually served on the board, and I served on the steering committee for a number of years. So I've kind of been around at the start of a lot of the things that are now passions, but they're now full-on organizations running on their own. The Auburn, and a lot of them are centered around Auburn. Some of them around Placer County in general, like the Land Trust. Patrice and I are donors to all of them, and we try to.
I'm aware of that.
Try to keep them
and gratified.
Yeah. It feels good. It feels good, and that's why you do stuff. You do stuff that makes you feel good, generally speaking. Most people, right? That's what we want to do.
Yes.
So the trouble is, there were just so many things that I liked. I have a very broad range of interests and features that I enjoy. So anyway, I'm glad to say that nearly all of those organizations have been rampantly successful.
Yes.
Have become very successful. So as soon as we get the theater back to its operational, which we will probably do within the next year or so. We're already in for building permits. We've had the design all done. We've done a bunch of restorative work internal to the building. Most of the public can't see it, but we've put in electronics that meet today's needs. We put in plumbing that is current for today.
Thank you.
All that stuff. And we've done that while waiting for the insurance companies to pay off our collapsed ceiling scenario. That took us, I think, a year and a half or more just to wade through that before the insurance company finally said, okay, we give. What do we need to? What kind of a check do we need to write you to get you off our back? And
If you don't want us to bother you, give us this.
Well, we actually, when we sued them, we actually filed suit because they weren't. Here was an insurance company that charges premiums all these years and then wasn't going to pay us. And the judge in the trial actually said, "Are you serious? Do you know what insurance companies are for?" And I mean, he lectured them sternly.
Good.
So in any event, he did. So we won. We prevailed, and we got a good part of the money we needed to move smartly towards restoration. It will be expensive. It will be many millions of dollars that we will be continuing to raise. We're in a capital campaign now. Have been for early part of the year.
Yeah.
We will go public with that campaign probably within the next year.
Okay.
Out to the public for the donations, that sort of thing. In any event, that's what I'm doing now.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, next week or so, we're going to totally replace the entire deck on our house, which is not going to be an easy.
I'm so happy that you have the time now to be with me. Yeah.
I make time for stuff that I think is important.
Yes.
And you are.
Oh, thank you.
You are. What you all do here is very important in my opinion too. I don't have any time to help with it, but I sure think you guys do a good job in getting information out to the community, entertainment out to the community, all that.
Well, isn't that wonderful?
Yes. Applause. Cue the applause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would Phil wants to put the information about what's coming up for the theater.
Okay.
And so you are not going to see us at the moment. We're going to see what's in the theater going on. And I do love that there are so many other organizations that help.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the many reasons I just adore living in Auburn, being with Auburn.
I sure agree.
I think that's just fabulous.
I sure agree. And look at the cooperation of the arts organizations over the last few years. There are all kinds of things. There's the symphony is having one of their fundraisers out on a land trust place. There's just all kinds of crossover and help for each other rather than competition and walling off. It's a very compatible, companionable situation with the arts organizations and with the business community.
Yeah.
Business community is all behind all of this.
Yes.
They love it.
It's fabulous.
It helps them. It helps us. Makes a better economy. I mean, we're living in paradise.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, no, not that paradise. We're actually living
This
in
one,
Auburn,
this
yeah,
one.
Right.
Now, you and Patrice don't live in Auburn,
We live in Meadow Vista.
Meadow Vista.
Yeah, we do.
How long have you lived there?
45
really?
years. 45
Okay.
years. Yeah.
When was that?
We moved out there. We moved out there and lived in a little 750 square foot cabin for 10 years in 1980,
Okay.
and then in 1990, excuse me, and then in 1980. Let me think. No, it was 1980. And then in 1989 and 90, we built the
Okay.
home we live in. We designed
Yeah.
and built the home we live in on top of Sugar Pine Mountain.
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
It's-
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And Don, my husband, and I came in 95,
Okay.
85.
85. Yeah.
And here and here and here and here.
Right.
And now I'm up in Auburn, North Auburn. No. I said, where you are.
Yeah. Meadow Vista is a
The Meadow Vista.
And I've lived in Auburn. I've lived in Loomis and,
Me
and a
too.
few places around. We for short periods of time there with other with other groups. When I first came, like I said, I lived on this farm for a while.
Yeah.
But Patrice and I spent an entire year. First of all, we were getting tired of living in this little 750 square foot cabin. It was wonderful and bucolic and all that,
And
but I was
sweet.
splitting wood for every weekend to keep us warm. It was a little too primitive. So we, every weekend for a year, we looked at everything on every realtor's list all around the area to find just kind of where we wanted to be. We wanted a bit of privacy, a bit more seclusion. We wanted a view. We wanted it to be a forest around us. We wanted all those kinds of things.
And you found it.
We eventually
Yeah.
found it. I was at work one day when Patrice called me and said, "I think I found it."
Oh, good.
And she found it on one of the local realtors in Meadow Vista. Had it on his
Great.
list, and at the moment we bought it, it was a jeep road to get up to it, and somebody had started a pad. An retired highway patrolman had started a pad, poured a foundation. It's as far as he got, and then a divorce broke the whole thing up. And his new wife didn't want to live anywhere near where his old wife was. Anyway, they basically, we ended up buying the property. Friend of ours was an architect, and of course Patrice was a dental hygienist for 40 years in town. She knew everybody, and so she knew who to ask, and she asked one of her clients who was an architect, "Who's the best contractor in town?"
Yeah.
And he told her
You
who
found
he think
her?
it was. And then she asked him, that guy, "Who do you think the best architect is in town?" And he said, Bo Pardew's the guy. So,
And
we're
you got
friends.
it.
We're friends with those folks to this day.
Oh, good.
They moved Bo moved to Hawaii, and we still go there and visit them frequently, just because you make friends
Yes,
in town that are
yeah.
important.
Okay. Again, your email is Dean and DEAN and Patrice PATRICE at iCloud.com. And this is Dean Prigmore, who is deeply involved with Auburn. Deeply.
Yep.
And I'm thrilled.
Thank you for having me.
I'm always happy to see you.
I'm happy to see you too, as it happens. Yeah.
And isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you very much for joining me.
Sure.
Again.
Oh, yeah,
We've
sure.
done this before,
Yeah, but
and it's always a kick.
Yeah, true. It is true.
And I'm glad you're watching me, us, all of us, and we'll see you later.
Yeah.